The custody trap was already set, and she walked right into it. Aurora Hale had everything: a Fortune 500 company, a pristine reputation, a beautiful daughter. What she didn't have was proof that her husband had been moving money for 3 years, building a legal cage designed to take it all away. When she finally found the courage to file for divorce, she discovered the terrifying truth. He'd hired investigators, planted financial discrepancies, and convinced half of Seattle's legal community that she was unstable. By the time she stumbled into Ethan Cole's modest law office, drenched from the rain and barely holding herself together, she had 48 hours before her husband filed first. And in family court, whoever files first usually wins. If you want to see how this fight ends, stay until the final word. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hit the windows of Ethan Cole's office like fists. Not the gentle Seattle drizzle people wrote songs about. This was October rain, cold and mean, the kind that found every crack in the old building's seal and reminded you that nothing stayed dry for long. Ethan sat at his desk, yellow legal pad in front of him, reviewing notes from a custody modification hearing that had gone sideways that morning. The client, a father of two, had shown up late, unshaven, smelling like last night's mistakes. Ethan had salvaged what he could, but the judge's face had said everything. Another case where the parent who needed help most was also the one least able to help themselves. He rubbed his eyes. The clock on the wall read 5:47 p.m. His son's daycare closed at 6:30, which gave him maybe 20 minutes to finish up before he had to hit traffic. Single father math. Always running, never quite late, never quite on time. The knock on the door was so soft he almost missed it. "We're closed," he called out, not looking up. The door opened anyway. Ethan glanced up, irritation ready on his tongue, and forgot what he was going to say. The woman standing in his doorway looked like she'd walked out of a magazine and directly into a hurricane. Tailored cream coat soaked through, dark hair plastered to her face, mascara smudged under eyes that were trying very hard not to look desperate and failing. But it was her hands that caught his attention. She was gripping her purse strap so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "I'm sorry," she said, voice tight and controlled. "Your assistant said you were still here. I know it's late. I can come back." She didn't move to leave. Ethan stood up slowly. "You're soaked. It's raining." "Yeah." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down before you drip yourself into a puddle." She hesitated, then stepped inside and closed the door behind her. When she moved, it was with the careful precision of someone who'd been holding themselves together for so long, they'd forgotten what it felt like to fall apart. She sat, placed her purse in her lap, folded her hands over it. Ethan stayed standing. "I'm Ethan Cole." "I know." She looked up at him. "I'm Aurora Hale." The name didn't register immediately. Then it did. Aurora Hale. CEO of Hale Innovations. Forbes. 30. Under 33 years running, the kind of woman who appeared on panels about leadership and work-life balance, always composed, always articulate, always in control. The woman sitting in front of him looked nothing like those photos. "Okay," Ethan said carefully. He sat back down. "What brings you here, Ms. Hale?" Her jaw tightened. "I need a divorce attorney. There are a lot of divorce attorneys in Seattle. I need one who won't talk." She met his eyes. "I called 6 firms today. 4 of them told me they had a conflict of interest before I even finished explaining why I was calling. The other 2 said they'd get back to me and never did." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Your husband got to them first." It wasn't a question. Aurora's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes confirmed it. "Gregory Hale," Ethan said, pulling the name from memory. "Venture capitalist, sits on half a dozen boards, big donor to everyone," Aurora finished. "He donates to everyone, judges re-election campaigns, bar associations, charity galas. He's very good at making friends." "And now you want to divorce him?" "Yes." "Why?" The question hung in the air between them. Aurora looked down at her hands. "Because I just found out my marriage has been a lie for the last 4 years. Because my daughter deserves better than growing up watching her mother pretend everything is fine. And because if I don't file in the next 2 days, he's going to file first and destroy me." Ethan picked up a pen. "Start from the beginning." The beginning, as it turned out, was a nightclub in San Francisco 7 years ago. Aurora had been 25, freshly promoted to VP of Product Development at a tech startup that was about to go public. Gregory Hale had been 32, charming, well-connected, and very interested in the brilliant young woman everyone said was going places. He was different back then, Aurora said. Her voice had lost some of its tight control. Now she just sounded tired. Or maybe I was different. I wanted to believe someone like him could actually see me as more than, I don't know, a prize, an acquisition. But he did see you as an acquisition. I think so. I just didn't realize it until recently. She looked out the rain-streaked window. We got married 8 months after we met. I was pregnant 3 months after that. Everything moved so fast. He said he wanted to build a life together, a family. He was so attentive, so involved. When Emma was born, he took paternity leave. He did the 2 a.m. feedings. He was perfect. Ethan had been writing notes, but he stopped. Perfect is usually a red flag. I know that now. Aurora's mouth twisted. The first year after Emma was born was chaos. Good chaos, but chaos. I was trying to run a company that was scaling faster than we could hire. Gregory was managing his fund. We had a newborn. We barely slept, but we were happy. Or I thought we were. When did that change? 3 years ago. Aurora's hands tightened on her purse again. I came home early from a business trip. I'd wrapped up meetings in New York a day ahead of schedule and decided to surprise him. When I walked into the house, I heard voices upstairs. A woman laughing. Ethan's pen stilled. I went upstairs. Aurora continued, her voice flat now. They were in our bedroom. The door was half open. I stood there in the hallway with my suitcase in my hand and watched my husband with a woman I'd never seen before. What did you do? Nothing. She said it like a confession. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. Then I walked back downstairs, got in my car, and drove to a hotel. I told myself I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what to do. Did you confront him? Not then. I came home the next day and acted like nothing had happened. He asked how my trip went. I said it was productive. We had dinner. Put Emma to bed. Watched TV. She laughed, a bitter sound. I convinced myself I'd imagined it, that I'd misunderstood what I saw, that there had to be some explanation. Ethan had heard versions of this story before. People did strange things when their world cracked open. Denial was one of the most common. When did you stop pretending? He asked. 2 weeks ago. Aurora reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. I hired a forensic accountant to review our finances. I told Gregory I was doing estate planning, updating our wills, making sure everything was organized. He didn't question it. She set the flash drive on the desk between them. What's on here? Ethan asked. Proof that my husband has been systematically moving money out of our joint accounts and into offshore holdings for the last 3 years. Almost $2 million. He's been doing it slowly, carefully, small transfers that wouldn't trigger alerts, shell companies, real estate purchases under corporate names I didn't recognize. Ethan picked up the drive. You said you have 48 hours before he files. How do you know that? Because yesterday I made a mistake. Aurora's composure finally cracked. Her voice dropped. I confronted him about the money. I told him I knew what he'd been doing, and he smiled at me. He actually smiled. Then he said, You should talk to a lawyer, Aurora. I already have. The office was quiet except for the rain. He told me he's filing for divorce on Friday, Aurora continued. He said he's going to argue that I'm an unfit mother, that I prioritize my company over my daughter, that I've been emotionally unstable and erratic. He's already lined up a child psychologist who will testify that Emma shows signs of maternal neglect. That's bullshit. I know it's bullshit. You know it's bullshit. But he has 3 years of documentation. Emails I sent at 2 in the morning. Business trips I took. Board meetings I couldn't miss. He's framing my career as evidence of bad parenting. Her voice shook. And the worst part is, I gave him all the ammunition. Every time I stayed late at the office, every time I missed a school event because of a product launch, every time I chose the company over being home for dinner, he was keeping track. Ethan set down his pen. Ms. Hale. Aurora. Aurora. He leaned forward. Is any of what he's saying true? Have you neglected your daughter? She looked at him like he'd slapped her. Then her expression hardened. My daughter is the only thing in my life I haven't screwed up, she said. I read to her every single night, even when I'm traveling. We video call and I read her the same book I packed in my suitcase. I know her favorite color is purple, but only the light purple, not the dark purple. I know she's afraid of thunderstorms, but loves the sound of rain. I know she wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up because she thinks dogs are better than people. And honestly, I'm starting to agree with her. Her voice broke on the last sentence. Ethan waited. Gregory has never put her to bed, Aurora said quietly. Not once in 5 years. He doesn't know what she eats for breakfast. He doesn't know the name of her best friend at school. He doesn't know that she sleeps with a stuffed rabbit named Clover that she's had since she was 6 months old. But he's going to stand in front of a judge and argue that he's the better parent, and he might actually win. Not if I can help it. Aurora looked up. You'll take the case? Ethan thought about the 6 firms that had turned her away. Thought about Gregory Hale's connections, his money, his willingness to weaponize the legal system against his own wife. Thought about the uphill battle this was going to be. Then he thought about his son, waiting at daycare, about the promise he'd made to himself when his ex-wife walked out, that he'd never let anyone make his kid feel like a bargaining chip. Yeah, he said, I'll take it, but I need you to understand something first. What? This is going to get ugly. Your husband isn't going to make this easy. He's going to try to humiliate you, exhaust you, break you down until you settle for whatever scraps he's willing to throw you. If we do this, we do it all the way. No backing down, no last-minute reconciliations. You need to be sure. Aurora stood up, extended her hand across the desk. I'm sure. Ethan shook her hand. Her grip was firm, steady. Good, he said. Then let's go to war. Batashit. Ethan picked up his son from daycare 20 minutes late. Sorry, buddy, he said as Noah climbed into the back seat, clutching a drawing he'd made that day. Work ran long. It's okay. Noah was 6, gap-toothed, and had his mother's curls. Miss Jennifer said you called. I did. Ethan glanced in the rear-view mirror as he pulled out of the parking lot. What do you want for dinner? Chicken nuggets. We had chicken nuggets yesterday? I like chicken nuggets. Ethan smiled despite himself. Chicken nuggets it is. They stopped at the grocery store, grabbed the essentials, nuggets, frozen vegetables, milk, bread, and headed home to the small 2-bedroom apartment Ethan had rented after the divorce. It wasn't much. The carpet was old, the kitchen was cramped, and the bathroom sink dripped no matter how many times he tried to fix it. But it was theirs. While Noah set the table, Ethan's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Aurora Hale. Thank you for seeing me today. I'm sending over the financial documents tonight. Let me know if you need anything else. He texted back, Received. I'll review everything this weekend. We'll meet Monday to go over strategy. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Thank you. Just 2 words, but Ethan could feel the weight behind them. He pocketed his phone and turned his attention back to his son, who was arranging chicken nuggets on his plate in the shape of a smiley face. Dad? Yeah? Are you going to be busy again this week? Ethan looked at Noah's hopeful face and felt the familiar pull of guilt. His son never complained, never asked for more than Ethan could give. But that didn't make it easier. Probably, Ethan admitted. I just took on a big case. Is it important? Yeah, buddy, it's important. Noah considered this. Okay, but can we still do Saturday pancakes? Saturday pancakes are non-negotiable. What does that mean? It means yes. Noah grinned and took a bite of his nugget smiley face. Later, after Noah was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with his laptop and the flash drive Aurora had given him. He opened the files and started reading. 2 hours later, he was still reading. Gregory Hale hadn't just moved money. He'd built an entire financial architecture designed to hide assets, create leverage, and ensure that when the marriage ended, and clearly he'd always known it would end, he'd walk away with everything. Shell corporations in Delaware, real estate holdings in Montana and Wyoming, investment accounts in the Cayman Islands, trusts set up in Emma's name but controlled by Gregory. It was sophisticated, methodical, and almost certainly illegal, but proving it in court was going to be another matter entirely. Ethan made notes, highlighted sections, started building a timeline. By the time he looked up, it was past midnight. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Aurora. Are you still awake? He hesitated, then typed back, yeah. Reviewing documents. I can't sleep. Understandable. The three dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then, I keep thinking about what he said. That I'm a bad mother. I know it's not true. But what if the judge believes him? Ethan stared at the message. He thought about all the responses he could give. Legal reassurances, strategic platitudes. The kind of things lawyers said to clients at midnight when panic set in. Instead, he typed, the judge isn't going to believe him, because we're not going to let that narrative stand. We're going to show exactly who you are and who he is. Trust me. A long pause. Then, I'm trying to. Get some sleep, Aurora. We've got work to do. Good night, Ethan. He set down his phone and went back to the documents. Muck. Monday morning came too fast. Ethan's office didn't officially open until 9, but Aurora was waiting outside at 8:30, 2 coffees in hand. I didn't know how you take it, she said when he unlocked the door, so I got black and brought sugar and cream. Black's fine. He took the cup and gestured her inside. You're early. I couldn't wait. She looked better than she had on Friday. Dry, composed, put together, but her eyes still had that haunted edge. Did you finish reviewing everything? Most of it. Ethan set his coffee on the desk and pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. Sit down. We need to talk strategy. Aurora sat. Here's the situation, Ethan began. Your husband has been planning this divorce for at least 3 years. He's moved nearly $2 million in marital assets into accounts and holdings that he controls. He's documented every business trip you've taken, every late night at the office, every school event you missed. He's built a narrative that you're a workaholic who prioritizes your company over your family, and he's going to use that narrative to argue for primary custody of Emma. Aurora's face was pale, but set. I know. Here's what we're going to do about it. Ethan flipped to a new page. First, we're filing a motion for temporary orders today. We're going to ask the court to freeze all marital assets until we can do a full accounting. We're also going to request a custody evaluation. What's that? A neutral third party, usually a psychologist or social worker, who interviews both parents, observes interactions with the child, and makes a recommendation to the court about what custody arrangement is in the child's best interest. And you think that will help us? I think it's our best shot. Ethan met her eyes. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. Your husband has resources and connections. He's going to fight dirty. But he's also gotten sloppy. Moving that much money without disclosure is a massive violation of his fiduciary duty to the marriage. And the custody evaluator isn't going to be impressed by a father who can't name his daughter's best friend. Aurora's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Her name is Lily. Write that down. Write down everything. Every detail about Emma that you know and he doesn't. Every bedtime routine, every favorite food, every fear and hope and dream. We're going to bury him in specificity. Okay. Aurora pulled out a notebook. What else? We need to talk about the other woman. Her pen stilled. Do you know who she was? Ethan asked. The woman you saw 3 years ago? No, I never asked. We need to find out. If your husband has been having an affair, or multiple affairs, that's relevant to the dissolution of the marriage. It also undermines his attempt to paint himself as the stable, reliable parent. Aurora was quiet for a moment. There's a private investigator I used when I was doing due diligence on the financials. His name is Marcus Chen. He's discreet. Can you trust him? I think so. Good. Hire him. Have him dig into Gregory's activities over the last 3 years. Travel records, credit card statements, anything that might indicate he's been unfaithful. But Aurora, Ethan waited until she looked up. This is going to hurt. You're going to learn things you don't want to know. I already know my husband is a liar and a thief, she said quietly. What's a little more truth? They worked through lunch. Ethan drafted the motion for temporary orders while Aurora compiled lists, Emma's routines, her medical history, her school records, her favorite books, her playdates, her allergies, her dreams, every piece of evidence that she was the parent who knew her daughter inside and out. Around 2 p.m., Ethan's assistant knocked on the door. Sorry to interrupt, Jenny said, but there's a courier here with a delivery for Ms. Hale. Aurora frowned. I didn't order anything. It's from a law firm, Jenny said. Rothman and Associates. The name hit like a punch. Rothman and Associates was one of the most expensive, most aggressive family law firms in Seattle. They represented tech executives, professional athletes, and anyone else with enough money to wage scorched earth divorce litigation. Aurora stood up. I'll sign for it. She came back 2 minutes later holding a thick envelope. Her hands were shaking. Aurora? Ethan said. She opened the envelope and pulled out a document. Read the first page, then the second. He filed, she said. Her voice was hollow. Gregory filed for divorce this morning. Ethan took the papers from her hands and scanned them quickly. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Request for primary residential placement of the minor child. Allegations of parental unfitness. A declaration from Gregory Hale, 3 pages long, outlining Aurora's failures as a mother. And at the bottom, a hearing date, 10 days from now. Son of a bitch, Ethan muttered. He moved up the timeline. What does this mean? It means he's trying to box us in. He filed before we could, which gives him procedural advantage, and he set an aggressive hearing schedule, probably hoping we won't have time to prepare a proper response. Ethan set down the papers. But he made a mistake. What mistake? He assumed you'd fall apart, that you'd see these allegations and panic and maybe even give up. Ethan looked at her. Are you going to fall apart? Aurora's jaw set. No. Are you going to give up? No. Good. Ethan grabbed his phone. Because we're filing our response today, and we're going to make damn sure the judge sees exactly who Gregory Hale really is. The next 10 days were a blur. Ethan worked 18-hour days, juggling Aurora's case with his existing clients and his responsibilities as a single father. He drafted responses, filed motions, coordinated with the forensic accountant Aurora had hired. He reviewed bank statements, corporate filings, property records. He interviewed potential witnesses. He prepared Aurora for her deposition. And through it all, he watched her transform. The frightened, rain-soaked woman who'd walked into his office was still there underneath. But day by day, something harder emerged. A quiet determination. A refusal to be broken. She showed up every morning with coffee. She took notes. She asked questions. She did every single thing Ethan asked her to do, no matter how difficult. And slowly, Ethan started to see the woman Gregory Hale had tried to bury. Smart, resilient, fierce when it came to protecting her daughter. They met at his office, at coffee shops, once at a park where Emma played on the swings while they reviewed custody schedules. Ethan brought Noah a few times when childcare fell through. The kids played together while the adults worked. Your son is sweet, Aurora said one afternoon, watching Noah push Emma on the merry-go-round. He's a good kid. Ethan didn't look up from the deposition outline he was reviewing. Takes after his mother. Where is she? If you don't mind me asking. Portland. She moved there about 2 years ago. New job, new life. He said it without bitterness. The anger had burned out a long time ago. She sees him every other weekend. That must be hard. It is what it is. Ethan finally looked up. She wasn't cut out for this. Being a parent. She tried for a while, but it made her miserable. I told her she could go, that I'd handle it. And you have. Yeah. He watched Noah spin Emma in circles, both kids shrieking with laughter. I have. Aurora was quiet for a moment. I'm terrified of losing her. I know. If the judge gives Gregory custody, he won't. But if he does, Aurora. Ethan set down his notes and looked at her directly. I need you to listen to me. We are going to win this. Not because the system is fair, not because justice always prevails, but because you are the better parent, and I'm going to make sure the judge sees that. Okay? She held his gaze. Okay. Now let's get back to work. The temporary orders hearing arrived like a storm. Ethan met Aurora outside the courthouse at 8 a.m. She was wearing a navy suit, minimal jewelry, her hair pulled back. Professional but not flashy. Exactly what they'd discussed. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They walked inside together. Gregory Hale was already there with his attorney, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s named David Rothman. Gregory looked exactly like his photos, handsome, polished, confident. He barely glanced at Aurora. The hearing was supposed to be procedural, temporary custody arrangements, temporary financial support. But Rothman came out swinging. "Your Honor," he began, "my client is deeply concerned about his daughter's welfare. Ms. Hale's work schedule is erratic and demanding. She frequently travels for business, sometimes for weeks at a time. She relies heavily on nannies and caregivers rather than providing direct parental involvement." Ethan stood. "Your Honor, Ms. Hale is the CEO of a successful company. The fact that she has a demanding career does not make her an unfit parent. Mr. Hale is attempting to weaponize her professional success against her." "Mr. Hale is attempting to ensure his daughter has a stable home environment," Rothman shot back. "Ms. Hale's own emails show that she routinely works until midnight, takes calls during family dinners, and prioritizes board meetings over school events. Mr. Hale's own behavior shows that he doesn't know his daughter's daily routine, her favorite foods, her friends' names, or even which stuffed animal she sleeps with every night," Ethan countered. "He's been an absentee father who's now suddenly interested in custody because it gives him leverage in the financial settlement." The judge, a woman in her 60s named Patricia Moreno, held up her hand. "Gentlemen, this is a temporary orders hearing, not a trial. I'm not making final custody determinations today." She looked at both attorneys. "Here's what I'm going to do. Custody will remain joint with a 50-50 residential schedule until we have a full custody evaluation. All marital assets are frozen pending financial disclosure. Mr. Hale, you're ordered to provide complete accounting of all assets, including any offshore or corporate holdings. Ms. Hale, same for you." Rothman started to object, but Judge Moreno cut him off. "I'm also ordering both parties to work with a parenting coordinator. You're going to learn to co-parent civilly, or I'm going to make your lives very difficult. Understood?" "Yes, Your Honor," Ethan and Rothman said in unison. "Good. We'll reconvene in 60 days for a status conference. Court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, Aurora let out a breath she'd been holding for the last hour. "That went better than I expected," she said. "It's a start." Ethan loosened his tie. "The custody evaluator is the real battleground. We need to make sure you're ready." "I am ready." "Aurora." "I am." She turned to face him. "You told me to trust you. I'm trusting you. So tell me what comes next." Ethan looked at her, this woman who'd been terrified and broken 10 days ago, now standing in front of a courthouse where her husband had just tried to destroy her, and she wasn't backing down. Something shifted in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. "What comes next," he said quietly, "is we show them who you really are." The custody evaluator's name was Dr. Sarah Brennan, and she had the kind of face that gave nothing away. Mid-40s, wire-rimmed glasses, sensible shoes. She shook Aurora's hand with professional neutrality and gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Thank you for coming in, Ms. Hale. This shouldn't take more than 2 hours." Aurora sat down, folding her hands in her lap the way Ethan had coached her. Calm, open, not defensive. "I appreciate you taking the time," she said. Dr. Brennan smiled slightly. "It's my job. Now, I've reviewed the initial filings from both parties. I'm going to ask you some questions about your relationship with Emma, your daily routines, your parenting philosophy. There are no right or wrong answers. I'm just trying to get a complete picture." "I understand." "Good. Let's start with a typical weekday. Walk me through your morning routine with Emma." Aurora took a breath and began. She described waking Emma up at 7, the battle over whether she'd wear the purple dress or the purple skirt. Always purple, never anything else. She described breakfast at the kitchen island, usually scrambled eggs and toast cut into triangles because Emma refused to eat squares. She described the drive to school, the songs they sang in the car, the way Emma always reminded her to drive carefully when it rained. Dr. Brennan took notes, her expression unchanging. "And after school?" "Emma gets out at 3:15. My assistant usually picks her up on days when I can't leave the office. She takes Emma to the park or the library until I'm done with meetings. I try to be home by 6. "Try to be?" Aurora felt the weight of the question. "I make it home by 6 at least 4 days a week. Sometimes there are late meetings or calls with international teams. On those nights, our nanny, Patricia, handles dinner and bedtime. But I always call. Even if it's 10 p.m. in Seattle and 7 a.m. in Tokyo, I call and we talk about her day. What about weekends? Weekends are ours. We go to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings. Emma picks out fruit and asks the vendors questions about where everything comes from. Sunday is usually quieter. We read, we bake, we watch movies. Gregory is often traveling or playing golf. Dr. Brennan's pen paused. Tell me about your relationship with your husband. Aurora's throat tightened. It's complicated. Most relationships are. We used to be happy. Or I thought we were. But over the last few years, things changed. He became distant, critical. He started spending more time away from home. I thought it was work stress. I thought we'd work through it. She looked down at her hands. I was wrong. When did you realize the marriage was over? When I found out he'd been lying to me about money, about other women, about everything that mattered. Dr. Brennan wrote something down. And Emma? Does she know about the divorce? She knows her dad and I are living separately right now. She knows things are changing, but I haven't told her all the details. She's 5. She doesn't need to know that her father is trying to take her away from me. Is that what you think he's doing? Aurora met Dr. Brennan's eyes. I know that's what he's doing. This isn't about Emma's best interests. It's about control. Gregory can't control me anymore, so he's trying to control the one thing that matters to me most. Dr. Brennan didn't react, just kept writing. The interview went on for another 90 minutes. Questions about discipline, about school involvement, about Emma's friends and her health and her emotional development. Aurora answered every single one, detailed and specific, because Ethan had drilled into her that the evaluator would be looking for proof that she actually knew her daughter. Finally, Dr. Brennan set down her pen. Thank you, Ms. Hale. I'll be conducting a similar interview with Mr. Hale next week, and then I'll schedule time to observe each of you with Emma separately. After that, I'll compile my report and submit it to the court. How long will that take? Typically 6 to 8 weeks. Aurora nodded. 6 to 8 weeks of not knowing. 6 to 8 weeks of living in limbo. One more question, Dr. Brennan said. If you could say one thing to the judge about why you should have primary custody of Emma, what would it be? Aurora didn't hesitate. Because I know her. Not the version of her that looks good in family photos. The real her. I know she hates loud noises but loves thunderstorms. I know she's afraid of the dark but too proud to admit it, so she sleeps with a nightlight shaped like a moon. I know she wants to save every animal she sees, even spiders. I know she cries when she's frustrated and gets quiet when she's sad. I know her, and I love her exactly as she is. Dr. Brennan's expression softened, just barely. Thank you, Ms. Hale. I'll be in touch. That evening, Aurora met Ethan at a coffee shop 3 blocks from his office. It was almost 7, and the place was nearly empty except for a couple of college students hunched over laptops in the corner. Ethan was already there, sitting at a table by the window with 2 cups in front of him. I ordered you tea, he said as she sat down. You looked like you needed something that wasn't coffee. Thanks. She wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the heat seep into her palms. The interview was brutal. They usually are. How do you think it went? I don't know. She didn't give anything away. She just sat there writing notes like I was some kind of specimen. Aurora took a sip of tea. She asked about my relationship with Gregory, about weekends, routines, all of it. And you told her the truth? As much as I could without completely breaking down. She set the cup down. When does Gregory meet with her? Next Thursday. Do you think he'll prepare the way I did? Probably. Rothman's good at coaching clients. Ethan leaned back in his chair. But here's the thing. Your husband can memorize facts about Emma. He can study her schedule and her favorite foods and learn to fake involvement, but he can't fake the details that only come from actually being there. The evaluator will ask follow-up questions. She'll dig, and that's where he'll slip. You sound confident. I am confident. You're the better parent, Aurora. The evaluator is going to see that. She wanted to believe him, but the fear was always there, sitting in her chest like a stone. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why did you become a family lawyer? Ethan was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup in slow circles on the table. My parents had a terrible divorce when I was 12. Screaming matches in court. Lawyers who cared more about billable hours than what was best for me and my sister. It was ugly and exhausting, and by the end, everyone was worse off than when it started. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. He looked up at her. But it taught me something. The legal system doesn't care about families. It cares about procedure and precedent and money. Someone has to actually give a damn about the people involved. So I decided I'd be that someone. Aurora studied him across the table. There was no performance in the way he said it, no attempt to sound noble or impressive, just honesty. Your ex-wife, she said carefully. Do you regret the divorce? No. We were terribles together. We wanted different things. She wanted freedom, spontaneity, adventure. I wanted stability and predictability and a kid who ate vegetables. He smiled slightly. Turns out those things don't mix well. But you stayed civil. We tried, for Noah's sake. It wasn't always easy, but we managed. He met her eyes. That's what I want for you and Gregory. Not some fantasy reconciliation. Just a functional co-parenting relationship where Emma doesn't get torn apart. I don't think Gregory wants that. Then we'll make it a condition of the settlement. Aurora laughed, a short, bitter sound. You think a legal document is going to make him be a decent human being? No, but it'll give us leverage when he's not. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, the city moved past. People heading home from work, headlights cutting through the early evening dark. Thank you, Aurora said quietly. For what? For not treating me like I'm fragile. A lot of people do that now. They talk to me like I'm about to shatter. You're not fragile. No, but I'm tired. That's different. Ethan stood up and grabbed his coat. Come on, I'll walk you to your car. Outside, the air was cold and damp. Aurora pulled her coat tighter as they walked the 2 blocks to the parking garage where she'd left her car. How's Noah? She asked. Good. He's been asking about Emma. Wants to know when they can play again. Emma asks about him too. Aurora smiled. She told me Noah is the only boy who doesn't think girls are gross. I raised him right. They reached her car. Aurora unlocked it, but didn't get in immediately. Ethan? Yeah? Do you ever get scared that you're not doing enough, that you're failing somehow? He looked at her for a long moment. Every single day. But you keep going. What else am I going to do? He shoved his hands in his pockets. The fear doesn't go away. You just learn to work around it. Aurora nodded, got into her car, started the engine. Hey, Ethan said before she could close the door. You did good today, with the evaluator. I mean it. Thanks. She drove home alone, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't cry. Takab, the private investigator's report arrived 3 days later. Marcus Chen delivered it in person, a thick manila envelope that he handed to Ethan across a table at a dim sum restaurant in the International District. You're not going to like this, Marcus said. Ethan opened the envelope and started reading. Gregory Hale had not been faithful to his wife, not even close. The report detailed 3 confirmed affairs over the last 4 years. The first had been with a junior associate at his venture capital firm. The second with a personal trainer at his gym. The third, the one Marcus had the most documentation on, was ongoing. A woman named Vanessa Ortiz, 28 years old, marketing executive at a tech startup Gregory's firm had invested in. Marcus had photos, credit card receipts from hotels and restaurants, text messages retrieved from phone records, a paper trail that made it very clear Gregory Hale had been living a double life. How long has the current affair been going on? Ethan asked. At least 18 months. Maybe longer. They've been careful, but not careful enough. Marcus tapped one of the photos. That was taken 6 weeks ago. Dinner at Canlis, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. He told his wife he was at a board meeting. Ethan stared at the photo. Gregory and Vanessa sitting close together, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing. What about the money? Ethan asked. Any connection between the affairs and the offshore accounts? Nothing direct, but Vanessa's startup received a $2 million investment from Gregory's fund about a year ago. The timing is interesting. Interesting was an understatement. If Gregory had mixed his personal relationships with his business dealings, that opened up a whole new set of legal problems. Ethan closed the folder. Can I keep this? It's yours. I made copies. Marcus leaned back in his chair. You going to tell Aurora? I have to. She's not going to take it well. No. But she needs to know. Marcus nodded. Good luck. Ethan called Aurora that evening and asked her to come to his office the next morning. He didn't tell her why over the phone. Some conversations couldn't happen through text or voicemail. She arrived at 9, punctual as always, with coffee for both of them. You sounded serious on the phone, she said as she sat down. What's going on? Ethan slid the folder across the desk. The investigator's report. You should read it. Aurora opened the folder, started reading. Her expression didn't change for the first page, or the second. But by the third page, her hands had started to shake. She read the whole thing. Every page, every detail, every photograph. When she finally looked up, her face was pale but composed. 3, she said. 3 affairs. That we know of. The first one started 6 months after Emma was born. Her voice was flat, distant. I was still breastfeeding, still getting up every 2 hours at night, and he was sleeping with someone else. Ethan didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Who's Vanessa Ortiz? Aurora asked. Someone he met through work. It's been going on for at least 18 months. Does he love her? The question caught Ethan off guard. I don't know. He must. Why else would he risk everything? Aurora closed the folder. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe this is just what he does. Maybe I was never special, just another acquisition. Aurora, I was so stupid, she laughed, a broken sound. I spent 3 years convincing myself I'd imagined what I saw, that I was paranoid or jealous or stressed, and the whole time he was just doing it again with someone new, someone younger. Ethan came around the desk and crouched down beside her chair. You weren't stupid. You trusted your husband. That's not a character flaw. It feels like one. It's not. He waited until she looked at him. And here's what matters now. This report proves Gregory has been lying about his commitment to the marriage. It undermines his entire narrative that you're the one who prioritized work over family. We can use this. Aurora wiped her eyes. How? In court, infidelity isn't technically relevant to custody decisions, but it is relevant to character. If Gregory is going to argue that he's the stable, reliable parent, we get to show that he's been lying and manipulating for years. We also get to question whether his financial decisions were made in the best interest of the marriage or in the best interest of his mistress. You think he gave her money? I think he invested in her company at a very convenient time. That's worth investigating. Aurora stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city was moving through its rhythms. People going to work, living their lives, unaware of the small devastations happening in offices and courtrooms all around them. I don't want Emma to know about this, she said. Not now. Maybe not ever. We'll keep it out of her line of sight as much as possible. Promise me. I promise. She turned back to face him. What do we do next? We file an amended petition. We lay out the affairs, the financial impropriety, all of it. We make sure the judge understands exactly who Gregory Hale is when nobody's watching. And then? And then we wait for him to make his next move. Gregory's next move came faster than expected. 2 days after Ethan filed the amended petition, Aurora received an email from her company's board of directors. They were calling an emergency meeting to discuss concerns about her leadership and her ability to effectively manage the company during her personal difficulties. Aurora forwarded the email to Ethan within 5 minutes of receiving it. He called her immediately. This is Gregory. I know. He's on the board. He's using his position to create pressure. Can he do that? Technically, the board has the authority to call for a leadership review, but the timing is suspicious as hell. Ethan was already pulling up corporate bylaws and shareholder agreements. Do you have support on the board? I think so. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Aurora's voice was strained. If they force me out, Ethan, I lose everything. The company is all I have besides Emma. They're not going to force you out. You can't know that. No. But I know you built that company from the ground up. I know you took it public and tripled its value in 3 years. I know the board would have to be insane to push you out based on your husband's manipulation. Boards have done crazier things. Ethan couldn't argue with that. When's the meeting? Friday, 2 p.m. Okay. Between now and then, I want you to document every decision you've made in the last 6 months, every product launch, every revenue milestone, every strategic initiative. We're going to show them that your personal life hasn't impacted your professional performance. What if it has? Has it? Aurora was quiet for a moment. I've been distracted. I've missed things. Last quarter's earnings weren't what they should have been. Why? Because I was spending half my time dealing with lawyers and accountants and trying to figure out how my husband had stolen nearly $2 million without me noticing. Then that's what you tell the board. You don't apologize for being a human being going through a crisis. You show them that despite everything, you've kept the company running. And if that's not enough, then we deal with it. But Aurora, you need to stop assuming the worst. Gregory wants you to panic. He wants you to feel like everything is falling apart. Don't give him that. She took a breath. Okay. Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for all of this. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. I know you do. After he hung up, Ethan sat at his desk and stared at the wall. The case was escalating faster than he'd anticipated. Gregory wasn't just fighting for custody. He was trying to dismantle Aurora's entire life, which meant they needed to hit back harder. The board meeting was a disaster. Aurora called Ethan from her car immediately afterward, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. They voted to put me on administrative leave pending a full performance review. What? Gregory made a motion, said my personal issues were creating reputational risk for the company. 2 other board members seconded it. The vote was 7-4. Ethan's jaw clenched. That's unbelievable. They gave me 2 weeks to respond to a list of concerns. If I can't address them to their satisfaction, they're going to recommend I step down as CEO. This is retaliation. It has to be. Of course it is. But how do I prove it? Gregory abstained from the vote, made a big show of recusing himself due to conflict of interest. He played it perfectly. Ethan was already thinking through options. Corporate litigation wasn't his specialty, but he knew people who handled it. You need to hire a corporate attorney, someone who can fight this from the business side while I handle the divorce. I'm running out of money, Ethan. Between legal fees and frozen accounts and everything else, I don't know how much longer I can keep paying everyone. We'll figure it out. How? Her voice cracked. How am I supposed to keep fighting when he's attacking from every direction? The company, custody, the money, all of it. I'm drowning. Ethan pulled over to the side of the road. He'd been driving to pick up Noah from school, but this couldn't wait. Aurora, listen to me. You are not drowning. You're standing in the middle of a storm that your husband created, and yes, it's brutal and exhausting and unfair, but you are still standing. You haven't given up. You haven't broken, and that terrifies him. I don't feel terrifying. I feel like I'm barely holding on. That's okay. You don't have to feel strong to be strong. You just have to keep showing up. She was quiet on the other end of the line. He could hear her breathing, trying to steady herself. What do I do about the board? She asked finally. You prepare the best response you can. You document every success, every win, every reason why pushing you out would be a mistake. And you make them look you in the eye and justify their decision. And if they still vote me out, then we sue them for breach of fiduciary duty and wrongful termination. But we're not there yet. Aurora let out a long breath. I'm so tired. I know. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Yes, you do. Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. You can take more than you think, because you have to. For Emma. For Emma, she repeated. For Emma. That weekend, Ethan took Noah to the park and ran into Aurora and Emma by accident. Or maybe not entirely by accident. Aurora had mentioned they'd be at the playground near Green Lake, and Ethan had decided it wouldn't hurt to take Noah there instead of their usual spot. The kids spotted each other immediately and ran off together toward the swings, leaving Ethan and Aurora standing by the picnic tables. Fancy meeting you here, Aurora said. Small city. Right. She smiled slightly. How's your weekend? Better than yours, probably. That's a low bar. She sat down on one of the benches. I've been working on the board response. It's taking forever. You'll get it done. Maybe. She watched Emma push Noah on the swing, both kids laughing. She's happy right now. That's all that matters. Ethan sat down beside her. How's she handling everything? The divorce, the schedule changes, all of it? Better than I am. Kids are resilient. Aurora's voice softened. But she asks about her dad, wants to know when we're going to be a family again. I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth in a way she can understand. The truth is her father is trying to take her away from me out of spite. How do I make a 5-year-old understand that? Ethan didn't have an answer. They sat in silence, watching their kids play. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the grass. For a few minutes, the world felt almost normal. Can I tell you something? Aurora said. Always. I used to think I had everything figured out. Good marriage, successful careers, beautiful daughter. I had the life everyone's supposed to want. And now it's all falling apart, and I keep wondering what I did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. I must have. Otherwise, how did I end up here? Ethan turned to look at her. You ended up here because you married someone who lied to you. That's not your fault. It feels like it is. Feelings aren't facts. She laughed quietly. You sound like a therapist. I've been to enough of them. Yeah? After my divorce. I was a mess for a while. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't figure out how to be a single father without completely screwing it up. Therapy helped. Are you still a mess? Sometimes, but I'm better at hiding it now. Aurora looked at him, really looked at him, and something passed between them. An understanding. A recognition. You're a good person, Ethan Cole. So are you, Aurora Hale. Emma ran over, breathless and grinning. Mom, can we get ice cream? It's almost dinner time. Please? Noah wants to come too. Ethan glanced at Aurora, who shrugged. Why not? She said. Rules are meant to be broken sometimes. So they walked to the ice cream shop 2 blocks away, kids running ahead, adults following at a slower pace. They ordered cones, strawberry for Emma, chocolate for Noah, vanilla for Aurora, coffee for Ethan, and sat outside at a metal table while the kids made a mess. It felt easy, natural, like something they'd done 100 times before. And that's when Ethan realized he was in trouble. Because somewhere between the legal briefs and the late-night strategy sessions and the moments like this, he'd stopped seeing Aurora as just a client. He'd started seeing her as someone he wanted to protect, not because it was his job, because he cared. And that was a complication neither of them needed. Monday morning, Dr. Brennan's office called. She wanted to schedule home visits to observe each parent with Emma in their natural environment. Aurora would go first. Thursday evening, 6 to 8 p.m. Ethan helped her prepare. They went over the plan. Keep it simple, authentic, don't try to perform. Just be the mother she was every other night. Thursday arrived. Aurora cleaned the house, cooked Emma's favorite dinner, laid out books and games. She was ready. Dr. Brennan showed up at 6 on the dot, clipboard in hand. Just pretend I'm not here, she said, which was, of course, impossible. But Aurora tried. She and Emma made dinner together, spaghetti and meatballs, with Emma helping to stir the sauce and set the table. They ate and talked about Emma's day at school, about her friend Lily's birthday party coming up, about the book they were reading together. After dinner, they played a board game. Emma won, and Aurora didn't let her. Then they moved to the couch for reading time. Emma picked out 3 books, and they read all 3, Aurora doing different voices for each character while Emma giggled. Bath time came next. Emma splashed and sang and insisted on using the purple towel, not the blue one. Aurora washed her hair, careful not to get soap in her eyes, and wrapped her in the towel afterward. Bedtime routine. Pajamas with stars on them, teeth brushing, 1 glass of water, Clover the stuffed rabbit retrieved from where he'd fallen under the bed. Aurora tucked Emma in and sat on the edge of the bed. Can you sing the moon song? Emma asked. Of course. Aurora sang, soft and slightly off-key, the lullaby her own mother had sung to her. Emma's eyes drifted closed. Her breathing evened out. Aurora kissed her forehead and stood up carefully, turning on the moon-shaped nightlight before leaving the room. Dr. Brennan was waiting in the living room. That was lovely, she said. That's just a normal night. I know. That's what made it lovely. Dr. Brennan made a few notes. I'll be observing Mr. Hale with Emma next week. After that, I'll compile my report. How long until the court gets it? 4 weeks, give or take. 4 more weeks of waiting. 4 more weeks of not knowing. Aurora walked Dr. Brennan to the door and closed it behind her. Then she leaned against it and let herself breathe. She'd done everything right. She'd been herself. Now all she could do was hope it was enough. Gregory's home visit happened the following Tuesday. Aurora didn't get details. It was confidential. But Emma came home that night subdued and quiet. "How was your time with Dad?" Aurora asked as she helped Emma get ready for bed. "Fine." "Just fine?" Emma shrugged. "We watched a movie. He ordered pizza." "That sounds nice." "I guess." Emma climbed into bed. "Mom?" "Yeah, baby?" "Why doesn't Dad know how to do my hair?" Aurora's heart clenched. "What do you mean?" "He tried to make a ponytail, but he did it wrong. It was too tight, and it pulled. And he didn't know I don't like pepperoni on my pizza." Aurora sat down on the edge of the bed. "Daddy's learning, sweetheart. He's trying." "But you already know." "I know." Emma looked up at her with serious eyes. "I don't want to live with Daddy all the time." "You won't have to. You'll get to see both of us." "But I want to live with you." Aurora pulled her daughter close, holding her tight. "I'm working on that, baby. I promise." She texted Ethan after Emma fell asleep. "Emma told me she doesn't want to live with Gregory full time." His response came quickly. "Did she say why?" "He doesn't know how she likes things. Her hair, her food, any of it. That's good for us. Not good for her, but good for the case." Aurora stared at the text. It felt wrong, using her daughter's pain as evidence. But what choice did she have? "I hate this," she typed. "I know, but we're close. Just hang on a little longer." She wanted to believe him. She had to believe him. Because if she stopped believing, she didn't know what would be left. The custody evaluator's report arrived on a Tuesday morning in late November, exactly 6 weeks after Dr. Brennan's last observation visit. Ethan's assistant placed the envelope on his desk while he was on a call with another client, and he stared at it for a full minute after hanging up before reaching for his phone. Aurora answered on the second ring. "Did you get it?" "Just came in." "And?" "I haven't opened it yet. I wanted to wait until you could be here." There was a pause. "I'm in a board meeting. Can you read it and call me back?" "Aurora, please, I can't sit through another 2 hours of corporate performance metrics without knowing. Just read it and tell me." Ethan heard the tension in her voice, the barely controlled fear underneath the professional veneer. "Okay, I'll call you in 20 minutes. He hung up and opened the envelope. The report was 37 pages long. Dr. Brennan had been thorough. Interview transcripts, observation notes, psychological assessments, background checks, references from teachers and pediatricians and neighbors. Everything that could possibly be relevant to determining Emma's best interests. Ethan skipped to the conclusion. Then he read it again to make sure he understood it correctly. Then he picked up the phone and called Aurora back. She answered before the first ring finished. "Well?" "Dr. Brennan is recommending primary residential placement with you. Gregory gets alternating weekends and 1 evening per week." Silence. "Aurora?" "Say that again?" "You won. The evaluator is recommending you get primary custody." He heard her breath catch. Heard something that might have been a sob or a laugh or both. "She said that? Actually said that? I'm reading directly from the report. Based on extensive observation and evaluation, it is this examiner's opinion that Emma's primary attachment is to her mother, Aurora Hale. Ms. Hale demonstrates consistent, nurturing parenting and maintains primary responsibility for Emma's day-to-day care, emotional needs, and developmental support. While Mr. Hale is capable of providing adequate care during his parenting time, he lacks the detailed knowledge of Emma's routines, preferences, and emotional needs that comes from sustained, engaged parenting. Oh my God. There's more. She noted that Emma expressed a clear preference to live primarily with you. She also noted concerns about Gregory's credibility during his interview. What kind of concerns? Ethan flipped back through the pages. She asked him about Emma's daily routine, and he gave answers that contradicted what Emma herself had told Dr. Brennan. She asked about Emma's friends, and he couldn't name any of them. She asked about allergies, and he said Emma didn't have any. She's allergic to shellfish. Exactly. Dr. Brennan wrote that Mr. Hale appeared to have prepared responses to anticipated questions but lacked genuine familiarity with the child's lived experience. Ethan couldn't keep the satisfaction out of his voice. She saw right through him. Aurora was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking, Does this mean it's over? Not yet. We still have to go to trial. Gregory can challenge the evaluator's recommendation, but Aurora, this is huge. Judges take these reports very seriously. We just got handed the strongest piece of evidence we could possibly have. When's the trial? Ethan checked his calendar. Judge Moreno set it for January 7th. That gives us 6 weeks to prepare. 6 more weeks. I know it feels like forever, but we're going to use that time. We're going to build a case so airtight that Gregory's attorney won't know what hit him. He heard voices in the background, someone calling Aurora's name. I have to go, she said. But Ethan, thank you for everything. We're not done yet. I know, but still, thank you. After she hung up, Ethan sat back in his chair and allowed himself a moment of relief. They'd cleared the biggest hurdle. Now came the hard part, making sure they didn't stumble at the finish line. What? Gregory's response to the custody evaluation was swift and vicious. 3 days after the report was filed with the court, Rothman submitted a motion to exclude it as evidence, arguing that Dr. Brennan had been biased against Gregory from the beginning and that her methodology was flawed. Ethan had expected this. What he hadn't expected was the declaration that came attached to the motion. It was from Vanessa Ortiz. In it, she claimed that she and Gregory had been in a committed relationship for over a year, that Gregory had been planning to leave Aurora long before the divorce proceedings began, that he was a devoted father who had been prevented from spending time with Emma because of Aurora's controlling behavior and demanding work schedule. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, carefully worded to make Gregory look like the victim and Aurora look like the villain. Ethan called Aurora immediately. Did you see Rothman's filing? I'm reading it right now. Her voice was ice. She's lying, all of it. He wasn't planning to leave me. He was planning to trap me. I know, but this is what they're going to argue, that you were the one preventing him from being an involved father, that he's been in a stable relationship and can provide Emma with a 2-parent household. A 2-parent household with his mistress? That's what they're going with? Apparently, Aurora laughed, sharp and bitter. The affair he had while he was married to me is supposed to be evidence that he's a stable parent? How does that make any sense? It doesn't, but they're going to try to reframe the narrative, make it seem like he was trapped in an unhappy marriage and found love elsewhere. That's insane. It's strategy. Ethan pulled up the declaration on his screen and started making notes. We need to respond to this carefully. We can't just dismiss it. We need to dismantle it piece by piece. How? By showing the timeline, when the affair started, when the money started disappearing, when he started building his legal case. We're going to prove that this wasn't about love. It was about control and money and making sure he came out ahead. Can we subpoena Vanessa? Make her testify? We can try, but she's probably been coached. She'll stick to her story. Then what do we do? Ethan thought for a moment. We focus on what we can prove. The financial misconduct, the hidden assets, the lies he told to the custody evaluator. We build a pattern of deception so clear that even his relationship with Vanessa starts to look suspect. And if that's not enough, then we make sure the judge understands that Emma's best interests have nothing to do with whether Gregory has a girlfriend. They have to do with who's actually been raising her for the last 5 years. Aurora was quiet. Then she said, I need to tell you something. Okay. Gregory called me last night. Ethan went still. What did he say? He said he's willing to settle, that if I agree to give him primary custody and half the company's value, he'll drop all the allegations about me being an unfit mother. That's extortion. I know, but he sounded so reasonable when he said it, like he was doing me a favor, like I should be grateful he's willing to negotiate. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell. She paused. Was that the wrong move? No, that was exactly the right move. He's getting desperate. The custody evaluation didn't go his way, so now he's trying to pressure you into giving up. Ethan's jaw tightened. Did he threaten you? Not directly, but he said things are going to get ugly if we go to trial, that he has evidence that will destroy my reputation, that I should think very carefully about what I'm willing to lose. He's bluffing. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because if he had anything genuinely damaging, he would have used it already. This is intimidation, pure and simple. Aurora let out a shaky breath. I'm scared, Ethan. I know. Not just about losing custody, about what he's going to do to me in court, the things he's going to say, the way he's going to try to make me look. Let him try. We'll be ready. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't let me fall apart. When we're in that courtroom and he's saying terrible things about me, promise you'll keep me steady. Ethan's throat tightened. I promise. The weeks leading up to trial were brutal. Ethan worked 16-hour days preparing witness lists and exhibit binders and cross-examination outlines. He deposed Gregory's colleagues, his friends, anyone who might have information about the affairs or the money or the lies. He tracked down bank records and corporate filings and email chains that proved Gregory had been planning this divorce for years. Aurora worked just as hard. She'd managed to survive the board's performance review, barely, and had been reinstated as CEO with conditions. But the fight had taken its toll. She looked exhausted every time Ethan saw her, dark circles under her eyes, her composure held together with sheer willpower. They met almost every day, sometimes at Ethan's office, sometimes at coffee shops, once at Aurora's house when Emma was at Gregory's for the weekend. They reviewed testimony and practiced responses to questions Aurora would face on the stand. He's going to ask about your work schedule, Ethan said during one of their prep sessions. He's going to list every business trip you took, every late meeting, every time you weren't home for dinner. I know. And you're going to stay calm. You're not going to apologize for having a career. You're going to explain that being a working mother doesn't make you a bad mother. What if the judge doesn't see it that way? Then the judge is wrong. But I don't think she will be. Judge Moreno has been doing this for 20 years. She knows the difference between a parent who works hard and a parent who doesn't care. Aurora nodded, but Ethan could see the doubt in her eyes. Hey, he said quietly. Look at me. She did. You're a good mother, better than good. Emma knows it. Dr. Brennan knows it. And by the time we're done, the judge will know it too. You keep saying that because it's true. She held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Then she looked away. We should keep going. What's next? Ethan glanced down at his notes, trying to ignore the way his pulse had quickened. Next, we talk about how you're going to handle cross-examination when Rothman brings up the affairs. What about them? He's going to try to make you look vindictive, like you're using Gregory's infidelity as a weapon in the custody fight. I am using it, because it's relevant. It's relevant to his character. But you can't come across as bitter or angry. You need to be factual, clinical even. Aurora laughed, a sharp sound. You want me to talk about my husband cheating on me for 4 years without being angry? I want you to channel that anger into something productive. Make it clear that the issue isn't the affairs themselves. The issue is the pattern of deception, the lies he told you, the lies he told the evaluator, the lies he's telling the court. And if I can't do that, if I get up there and I'm just furious, then we take a break. But Aurora, I need you to trust me on this. Emotion is good. It shows you care. But if you let it control you, Rothman will use it against you. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I hate that I have to perform, that I have to be the perfect witness while Gregory gets to play the victim. I know, it's not fair, but fair doesn't matter. Winning matters. Is that what you tell all your clients? Only the ones I believe in. She looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. You really think we're going to win? I know we are. How can you be so sure? Because I'm not going to let you lose, Ethan thought. Because you and Emma deserve better than this. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being just a case and started being personal. But he didn't say any of that. Instead, he said, because the truth is on our side. And in the end, that's what matters. 2 weeks before trial, Ethan's ex-wife called. I need to switch weekends with Noah, Karen said without preamble. Something came up at work. Ethan checked his calendar. Which weekends? The one right before Christmas. I know it's my turn, but I can't make it work. That's fine, we'll adjust. Thanks. How is he? Good. Growing like a weed, still obsessed with dinosaurs. Karen laughed. Some things never change. Tell him I miss him. I will. There was a pause. Then Karen said, You sound stressed. Big case. The CEO divorce? I saw something about it in the news. Ethan frowned. What did you see? Just that Aurora Hale is going through a messy split. They mentioned the custody fight. Is that your case? You know I can't talk about clients. Right. Sorry. Another pause. Just be careful, Ethan. Careful of what? Getting too involved. You have a tendency to take these things personally. It's my job to care about my clients. There's caring, and then there's... You know what? Never mind. I'm sure you've got it handled. After they hung up, Ethan sat at his desk and tried not to think about what Karen had said. She was wrong. He wasn't getting too involved. He was doing his job. The fact that he thought about Aurora more than he should, that he looked forward to their meetings more than was strictly professional, that he'd started imagining what it might be like if she wasn't his client anymore, none of that meant anything, except it did. And he knew it. But there was nothing he could do about it. Not until the case was over. Not until Aurora and Emma were safe, and Gregory was out of the picture, and the professional boundaries that kept Ethan from saying what he actually felt were no longer standing between them. If they ever stopped standing between them. His phone buzzed. A text from Aurora. Emma's asking when she can see Noah again. Any chance you're free this weekend? Ethan stared at the message. He should say no. He should maintain distance, keep things professional, not blur the lines any more than they already were. Instead, he typed back, Saturday afternoon, there's a new exhibit at the Science Museum the kids might like. 3 dots appeared immediately. That sounds perfect. Thank you. He pocketed his phone and went back to work, trying to ignore the warmth spreading through his chest. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Ethan picked up Noah and drove to the museum, where Aurora and Emma were already waiting by the entrance. Emma ran up to Noah immediately, chattering about the dinosaur exhibit she'd heard about. The 2 kids disappeared into the museum's main hall, while Ethan and Aurora followed at a slower pace. Thanks for doing this, Aurora said. She's been asking about Noah nonstop. Noah's been the same. I think they're good for each other. They walked through the exhibits, staying close enough to keep an eye on the kids, but far enough back to give them space. At one point, Emma grabbed Noah's hand to pull him toward a display about volcanoes, and Aurora smiled. She doesn't do that with other kids, she said quietly. The hand-holding thing, she's usually pretty independent. Noah's easy to be around. He doesn't push. Like his dad. Ethan glanced at her. Is that a compliment? Definitely. They stopped in front of a planetarium show and the kids begged to go in. It was dark inside, the ceiling transformed into a night sky full of stars. Emma sat between Aurora and Noah, her head tilted back in wonder. Halfway through the show, Ethan felt Aurora's shoulder press against his. Not deliberately, the seats were close together, and she'd shifted to let Emma lean against her. But the contact was there, warm and solid and strangely comforting. He didn't move away. Neither did she. When the show ended and they filed back out into the bright museum hallway, Emma tugged on Aurora's sleeve. Mom, can Noah come over for dinner? Aurora looked at Ethan. You're probably busy. We're not busy, Noah announced. Dad said we're just having leftovers. Thanks for that, Ethan muttered. Aurora laughed. Leftovers sound terrible. You should come over. I'm making lasagna. You don't have to. I want to. Please? There were a dozen reasons Ethan should say no. Professional boundaries. Ethical considerations. The fact that spending more time with Aurora outside of work was only going to make it harder to keep his feelings in check. But Emma was looking at him with hopeful eyes, and Noah was already nodding enthusiastically, and Aurora's smile was genuine and warm and impossible to refuse. Okay, he said. Lasagna sounds great. Aurora's house was nothing like Ethan had expected. He'd imagined something sleek and modern, all glass and steel and expensive furniture. Instead, it was warm and lived in, with books stacked on every surface and Emma's artwork covering the refrigerator and a well-worn couch that looked like it had survived 1,000 movie nights. Sorry about the mess, Aurora said as she led them into the kitchen. I didn't have time to clean. It's not messy. It's comfortable. She smiled. Diplomatic answer. While Aurora cooked, the kids played in the living room. Ethan offered to help and was put in charge of making the salad, which he tackled with more focus than it probably required. You're very precise with those tomatoes, Aurora observed. I take salads seriously. I can see that. They worked in companionable silence for a while. Then Aurora said, Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever regret it? Becoming a lawyer? Ethan considered the question. Sometimes. When a case goes badly and I can't fix it, when I see people destroy each other over money or pride or spite, but then I get a case like yours, where I actually feel like I'm making a difference, and I remember why I started doing this in the first place. To be the person who gives a damn. Yeah. Aurora was quiet for a moment, then she said, I'm glad you gave a damn about me. Ethan looked up from the cutting board. I'm glad you walked into my office that day. Their eyes met across the kitchen. Something passed between them, unspoken but undeniable. The air felt charged, full of things neither of them could say. Then Emma called out from the living room, Mom, can we watch a movie? And the moment broke. After dinner, Aurora called back. She turned back to the lasagna, her cheeks slightly flushed. Ethan went back to cutting tomatoes, his heart beating faster than it should. Dinner was chaotic and loud and perfect. Emma told knock-knock jokes that didn't make sense. Noah explained in exhaustive detail why Triceratops was the best dinosaur. Aurora and Ethan traded stories about their most disastrous cooking attempts, each trying to top the other. I once set off the fire alarm making toast, Aurora said. I flooded the kitchen trying to make pasta, Ethan countered. How do you flood a kitchen making pasta? I don't want to talk about it. Emma and Noah thought this was hilarious. After dinner, they did watch a movie, some animated thing about talking animals that the kids loved and the adults tolerated. Emma fell asleep halfway through, curled up against Aurora's side. Noah made it to the end but was clearly fighting to keep his eyes open. We should go, Ethan said quietly, not wanting to disturb Emma. Aurora nodded. She carried Emma upstairs while Ethan helped Noah put on his shoes. When she came back down, they stood at the door for a moment, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Thank you for today, Aurora said. It was, really nice. Normal, you know? Yeah, I do. I miss normal. So do I. She stepped closer, and for a second Ethan thought she might hug him, but she stopped just short, her hand reaching out to touch his arm instead. The trial's in 2 weeks, she said. I know. I'm terrified. I know that too. But I'm also ready to be done with all of this, to have my life back. Ethan covered her hand with his. You're going to get it back. I promise. She looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. What happens after? When the trial's over? It was the question Ethan had been asking himself for weeks. The question he couldn't answer without crossing a line he wasn't supposed to cross. I don't know, he said quietly, but I think we'll figure it out. Aurora nodded slowly. Then she stepped back, letting her hand fall away. Good night, Ethan. Good night. He walked to the car with Noah half asleep in his arms, and when he looked back, Aurora was still standing in the doorway, watching them go. The final week before trial was a blur of last-minute preparations and sleepless nights. Ethan filed his trial brief, outlining every argument, every piece of evidence, every witness he planned to call. He organized exhibits into binders, bank statements, emails, text messages, photographs, the custody evaluation, character references for Aurora, documentation of Gregory's financial misconduct. He met with Aurora 3 times to rehearse her testimony. They practiced answers to the hardest questions, the ones designed to make her look like a neglectful mother or a vindictive ex-wife. She got better each time, more confident, more controlled. But Ethan could see the strain wearing on her. She was losing weight, sleeping less, holding herself together through sheer determination. You need to rest, he told her after their last prep session. I'll rest when this is over. Aurora, I'm fine, Ethan. I just need to get through the next week. You're not fine. You look exhausted. She gave him a tired smile. Wow. Way to make a girl feel special. I'm serious. You need to take care of yourself. If you collapse on the stand, it's not going to help our case. I'm not going to collapse. Good. Because I need you sharp. Rothman's going to come at you hard, and you need to be ready. I am ready. Are you? She met his eyes. Ask me. What? Ask me the question you're most worried about, the one you think I'll mess up. Ethan hesitated. Then he said, Did you love him, Gregory? When you married him, did you actually love him, or was it just convenient? Aurora flinched, but she didn't look away. I loved him, or I loved who I thought he was. I loved the man who stayed up all night when Emma had colic. The man who brought me coffee in bed and listened to me talk about work stress and made me laugh when I was taking myself too seriously. I loved that man, but he wasn't real. He was just a performance. And when I finally figured that out, it was too late. That's good, Ethan said quietly. That's honest. That's what the judge needs to hear. Aurora's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. Anything else? Yeah, one more. He paused. If you could go back, knowing what you know now, would you still marry him? She didn't hesitate. Yes. Why? Because if I didn't marry him, I wouldn't have Emma. And she's worth everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every sleepless night worrying about losing her. She's worth all of it. Ethan's throat tightened. Perfect. That's exactly what you need to say. Aurora stood up and gathered her things. At the door, she turned back. Ethan? Yeah? Whatever happens next week, thank you. For believing in me, for fighting for me, for giving a damn. You already thanked me for that. I know, but I wanted to say it again. After she left, Ethan sat alone in his office and stared at the case files spread across his desk. Hundreds of pages of evidence, witness statements, legal arguments, everything they needed to win, everything except a guarantee. Because the truth was, he couldn't promise Aurora she'd get custody. He couldn't promise the judge would see things their way. He couldn't promise that justice would prevail. All he could promise was that he'd fight for her with everything he had, and that would have to be enough. The night before trial, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through his opening statement in his head. He'd practiced it a dozen times, tweaked every word until it was exactly right. But now, in the darkness, it all felt inadequate. At 2 a.m., he gave up and went to the kitchen. He was making coffee when his phone buzzed. A text from Aurora. Are you awake? He typed back, Yeah, can't sleep. Me either. Nervous? Terrified. Ethan stared at the screen, then made a decision that was probably unwise but felt necessary. He called her. She answered immediately. Hi. Hey, Dee? I can't stop thinking about tomorrow, about what he's going to say, about what if we lose. We're not going to lose. You keep saying that, because it's true. Ethan leaned against the counter. Aurora, listen to me. I've been doing this for 8 years. I've seen good parents lose custody to terrible ones. I've seen people destroyed by a system that's supposed to protect them. But I've also seen truth win out. I've seen judges get it right. And I genuinely believe that's what's going to happen tomorrow. What if you're wrong? Then we appeal, and we keep fighting until we win. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I don't know what I would have done without you. You would have found another lawyer. That's not what I mean. Ethan closed his eyes. I know. We can't talk about this, can we? Not until after. No, we can't. Okay. Another pause. But after, when this is all over, we're going to talk about this. Yeah, we are. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Aurora. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we're going to show them who you really are. After he hung up, Ethan stood in his kitchen for a long time, phone in hand, trying to remember why professional boundaries existed in the first place. Then he went back to bed and forced himself to rest. Because tomorrow, the fight began, and he needed to be ready. The courtroom was smaller than Aurora had expected. She sat at the table next to Ethan, her hands folded in front of her, her spine straight. Across the aisle, Gregory sat with David Rothman, looking calm and composed in an expensive suit. He didn't look at her. Not once. Judge Moreno entered, and everyone stood. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Please be seated, she said. We're here today for the final hearing in the matter of Hale versus Hale. This is a dissolution of marriage with contested custody. Mr. Cole, you may present your opening statement. Ethan stood up. He looked at Aurora once, a brief glance that felt like reassurance, and then he turned to face the judge. Your Honor, this case is about two things: truth and love. The truth is that Aurora Hale has been the primary parent to her daughter Emma for every day of that child's life. She knows Emma's fears and dreams and favorite color and the name of the stuffed rabbit she sleeps with every night. She has been there for every skinned knee, every bedtime story, every moment that matters. The truth is that Gregory Hale is a stranger to his own daughter. He has spent years prioritizing his career, his affairs, and his own interests over being a father. And now he wants custody, not because he loves Emma, but because he wants to punish his wife for daring to divorce him. Wubasi ein oamachant. Rothman started to object, but Judge Moreno waved him off. Let him finish, she said. Ethan continued. The evidence will show that Mr. Hale has engaged in financial misconduct, hiding nearly $2 million in marital assets. The evidence will show that he has lied repeatedly, to his wife, to the custody evaluator, and to this court. And the evidence will show that the only person who has consistently put Emma's needs first is the woman sitting at this table. Aurora Hale is not a perfect parent. No one is. But she is the parent Emma needs. And that's what this case is really about. He sat down. Judge Moreno made a note. Then she looked at Rothman. Your opening? Rothman stood, smoothing his tie. Your Honor, my client is a devoted father who has been unfairly vilified by a vindictive ex-wife. Ms. Hale has spent years putting her career ahead of her family. She travels constantly, works late hours, and relies on hired help to raise her daughter. Mr. Hale, by contrast, is in a stable relationship and ready to provide Emma with a nurturing two-parent home. The custody evaluator's report is biased and should be disregarded. We will show that Mr. Hale is the better parent, and we ask this court to award him primary custody. He sat down. Judge Moreno looked between the two attorneys. Very well, Mr. Cole. Call your first witness. Ethan stood. The petitioner calls Aurora Hale to the stand. Aurora's heart was pounding as she walked to the witness box. The bailiff swore her in, and she sat down, her hands gripping the armrests. Ethan approached slowly. Ms. Hale, how old is your daughter, Emma? She's 5. She'll be 6 in March. And how long have you been married to Gregory Hale? 7 years. We're separated now. Can you describe your relationship with Emma? Aurora took a breath. She's my whole world. I know that sounds like something every parent says, but it's true. From the moment she was born, everything I've done has been for her. Tell me about a typical day with Emma. And Aurora did. She talked about mornings and breakfasts and the drive to school. She talked about bedtime routines and favorite books, and the way Emma insisted on wearing purple every single day. She talked about scraped knees and bad dreams, and the fierce joy of watching her daughter discover the world. Ethan walked her through exhibit after exhibit, photos of Aurora and Emma together, school records showing Aurora attended every parent-teacher conference, medical records showing she took Emma to every doctor's appointment. Ms. Hale, your husband has alleged that you prioritize work over your daughter. What do you say to that? I say that having a career doesn't make me a bad mother. I work hard because I want to provide Emma with a good life, but I also make sure I'm there for the things that matter. I video call her when I'm traveling. I read to her every night. I know her, inside and out. And Mr. Hale? Does he know Emma the same way? No, he doesn't, Rothman objected. Speculation. Sustained, Judge Moreno said. Ms. Hale, you can only testify to what you know personally. Then I'll rephrase, Ethan said. Ms. Hale, have you observed Mr. Hale's interactions with Emma? Yes. And based on those observations, does he demonstrate the same level of knowledge about her daily life, her preferences, her needs? No. He doesn't know which foods she likes or which stories she wants to hear. He doesn't know her friends' names or that she's afraid of the dark. He's her father, but he's never actually been her parent. It was brutal and honest and exactly what needed to be said. Ethan stepped back. Your witness. Rothman stood up, his expression cold. Ms. Hale, you testified that you work hard to provide for your daughter. How many hours a week would you say you work? It varies, between 40 and 60. And how many of those hours are spent away from home? Most of them. So Emma spends most of her waking hours without you present? She's at school during the day. That's not what I asked. When Emma is not at school, are you the one caring for her, or is it the nanny you hired? Aurora's jaw tightened. Patricia helps when I can't be there, but I'm the one who makes all the decisions about Emma's care. But you're not the one physically caring for her on a daily basis, are you? I'm there as much as I can be. Is that a yes or a no, Ms. Hale? Ethan stood. Objection. Argumentative. Overruled, Judge Moreno said. Answer the question, Ms. Hale. Aurora met Rothman's eyes. I have a demanding job, but that doesn't mean I'm not Emma's mother. I'm there for her every single day, even when I can't physically be in the same room. How convenient, Rothman said. Now, let's talk about the affairs you've accused my client of having. I didn't accuse him. I proved it. You hired a private investigator to follow him, correct? Yes. And you presented that evidence in an attempt to make him look bad in front of this court. I presented it because it's the truth. Or because you wanted revenge for the end of your marriage. Ethan was on his feet. Objection. Your Honor, this is harassment, not cross-examination. Judge Moreno looked at Rothman. Counsel, move on. Rothman smirked. No further questions. Aurora stepped down, her hands shaking. As she walked back to the table, Ethan squeezed her shoulder briefly. You did great, he whispered. She didn't feel great. She felt like she'd been torn apart. But the trial was just beginning. Judge Moreno called a 15-minute recess after Aurora's testimony. Ethan walked with her out into the hallway, where she immediately leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. I hate him, she said quietly. I've never hated anyone in my life, but I hate him. That's normal. Is it? Because it doesn't feel normal. It feels toxic. It's a natural response to being attacked. Ethan kept his voice low. But Aurora, listen to me. You can't let him see that he got to you. When we go back in there, you need to look calm, composed, like his attorney's questions didn't touch you. They did touch me. I know, but he doesn't get to know that. She opened her eyes and looked at him. How do you do this? Day after day, watching people tear each other apart. I remember why I'm doing it, who I'm doing it for. He glanced back toward the courtroom. Right now, I'm doing it for you and Emma. That's all that matters. Aurora pushed herself off the wall. Okay, I'm ready. You sure? No, but let's go anyway. When they returned to the courtroom, Ethan called his next witness. The petitioner calls Dr. Sarah Brennan. The custody evaluator took the stand with the same neutral expression she'd worn during her interviews. She was sworn in, and Ethan approached her carefully. Dr. Brennan, can you explain your role in this case? I was appointed by the court to conduct a custody evaluation. That involved interviewing both parents, observing each parent with the child, interviewing the child herself, and reviewing relevant documents. And what was your conclusion? Based on my evaluation, I recommend that Emma's primary residence be with her mother, Aurora Hale, with Mr. Hale receiving alternating weekends and one evening per week. Can you explain the reasoning behind that recommendation? Dr. Brennan referred to her notes. Emma has a strong primary attachment to her mother. Ms. Hale demonstrates detailed knowledge of Emma's daily routines, emotional needs, friendships, preferences, and developmental milestones. She is actively involved in Emma's education and extracurricular activities. In contrast, Mr. Hale was unable to answer basic questions about his daughter's life during our interview. Can you give examples? He couldn't name any of Emma's friends. He was unaware of her food allergies. He didn't know which stuffed animal she sleeps with or what her bedtime routine consists of. When I asked him to describe a typical day with Emma, his answers were vague and generalized. Did you observe Mr. Hale with Emma? Yes. During the home visit, I observed him ordering pizza for dinner without asking Emma what she wanted. She doesn't like pepperoni, but he ordered it anyway. He also attempted to put her hair in a ponytail, but did it incorrectly, causing her discomfort. These seem like small things, but they're indicative of a larger pattern. What pattern is that? A lack of sustained, engaged parenting. Mr. Hale is capable of providing adequate supervision, but he lacks the intimate knowledge that comes from being Emma's primary caregiver. Ethan let that sink in. Did you interview Emma herself? Yes, multiple times. And what did she say about her parents? She expressed love for both of them, but when I asked where she felt most comfortable, she said her mother's house. When I asked who she talks to when she's sad or scared, she said her mother. When I asked who knows her best, she said her mother without hesitation. Thank you, Dr. Brennan. No further questions. Rothman stood up for cross-examination, his expression sharp. Dr. Brennan, you testified that Ms. Hale is actively involved in Emma's education, but isn't it true that she's missed multiple school events due to work obligations? She has missed some events, yes, but she attends the majority of them, and more importantly, she maintains regular communication with Emma's teachers. And the nanny, Patricia. How much time does Patricia spend with Emma compared to Ms. Hale? Patricia provides supplemental care when Ms. Hale is working, but Ms. Hale remains the primary decision maker and emotional anchor in Emma's life. Isn't it possible that Emma has formed an attachment to her mother simply because that's what children do, not because Ms. Hale is objectively the better parent? Dr. Brennan gave Rothman a look that could have frozen water. Children form attachments to the people who are consistently present and responsive to their needs. Emma's attachment to her mother is strong because Ms. Hale has been consistently present and responsive. But you're making a subjective judgment based on limited observations. I'm making a professional judgment based on 30 years of experience, over 100 hours of work on this case, and established psychological research on child development and attachment theory. Rothman opened his mouth, then seemed to think better of it. No further questions. Dr. Brennan stepped down, and Ethan caught the briefest flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. Judge Moreno looked at her watch. We'll break for lunch. Be back at 1:30. Outside the courthouse, Aurora and Ethan found a quiet cafe 2 blocks away. Aurora ordered a sandwich she didn't eat, and Ethan drank coffee he didn't taste. That went well, Aurora said. Right? Dr. Brennan was incredible. She was. But Rothman's going to come back harder this afternoon. He'll put Gregory on the stand and try to rehabilitate his image. How's he going to do that? Gregory doesn't know anything about Emma. He's been coached. He'll have memorized answers. He'll look sincere and regretful and claim he's been trying to be more involved, but you prevented it. Aurora's hand tightened around her water glass. That's a lie. I know, and we'll prove it, but you need to be prepared for him to sound convincing. I don't think I can sit there and listen to him lie. You have to, and you have to keep your face neutral. No reactions, no visible anger. Can you do that? Aurora stared at her untouched sandwich. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Aurora said, What happens if we lose? We won't. But what if we do? Ethan set down his coffee. Then we appeal. We fight it until we win. But Aurora, I need you to stop thinking about worst-case scenarios. We have the evidence, we have the custody evaluation, we have the truth on our side. The truth doesn't always win. No. But it wins more often than lies do. He reached across the table and put his hand over hers. Trust me. She looked down at their hands, then back up at his face. I do trust you. That's the only reason I'm still standing. Ethan should have pulled his hand back, should have maintained professional distance. But he didn't. Instead, he squeezed her hand gently and said, Then keep standing. We're almost there. When they returned to the courthouse, the afternoon session began with Gregory Hale taking the stand. He looked good. Ethan had to give him that. Pressed suit, perfectly styled hair, the kind of composed expression that said, reasonable man dealing with an unreasonable situation. Rothman walked him through the softball questions first. How long had he been married to Aurora? How much did he love his daughter? How had he tried to be an involved father? Gregory's answers were smooth, practiced. I've always wanted to be there for Emma, but Aurora's schedule made it difficult. She'd make plans without consulting me, or she'd tell Patricia to handle things before I even knew Emma needed something. I felt shut out of my own daughter's life. It was a masterful performance, believable, sympathetic. Rothman continued, Mr. Hale, you've been accused of having multiple affairs. How do you respond to that? Gregory had the decency to look uncomfortable. I'm not proud of my choices. My marriage to Aurora was struggling, and I made mistakes. But those mistakes don't make me a bad father. I've been in a committed relationship with Vanessa for over a year now, and I'm ready to provide Emma with a stable, loving home. And the financial allegations? The claims that you hid marital assets? I was protecting my investments. Aurora is a brilliant CEO, but she can be impulsive with money. I wanted to make sure our family's financial future was secure. Ethan felt Aurora tense beside him. He put a hand on her arm, a silent reminder to stay calm. When Rothman finished, it was Ethan's turn. He stood slowly and approached the witness stand. Gregory met his eyes with cool confidence. Mr. Hale, you testified that you've always wanted to be involved in Emma's life. Is that correct? Yes. Can you tell me the name of Emma's best friend? Gregory hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Lily. And what's Lily's last name? I'm not sure. You don't know your daughter's best friend's last name? I know her first name. That's what matters. Ethan pulled out an exhibit. This is Emma's kindergarten class photo. Can you point to Lily in this picture? Gregory stared at the photo. His jaw tightened. I can't tell from this angle. You can't identify your daughter's best friend in a class of 18 children? Objection, Rothman said. Badgering. Overruled, Judge Moreno said. Answer the question, Mr. Hale. No, I can't. Ethan let that sit for a moment. Let's move on. What's Emma's bedtime routine? She goes to bed around 8. That's the time. What's the routine? Bath, pajamas, bed. Does she brush her teeth before or after the bath? After, I think. You think? After. Does she read before bed? Sometimes. What book is she reading right now? Gregory's composure cracked slightly. I don't know. Does she sleep with a stuffed animal? I believe so. What's the animal? A bear? It's a rabbit named Clover. She's had it since she was 6 months old. Ethan pulled out another exhibit. Mr. Hale, this is a calendar showing Emma's activities over the last 6 months. Can you tell me which events you attended? Gregory scanned the calendar. I attended some of them. Can you be specific? The spring concert in April. According to the attendance log from the school, you weren't there. Ms. Hale attended with Patricia, the nanny. I must be thinking of a different event. What event? I don't remember specifically. Ethan moved closer. Mr. Hale, the truth is you can't name a single school event you attended in the last 6 months, can you? I've been busy with work. Busier than Ms. Hale, who runs a Fortune 500 company and still manages to attend her daughter's events? My work is different. How is it different? I have obligations. So does Ms. Hale, but she makes time. You don't. Rothman stood. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Judge Moreno looked at Ethan. Move on, counselor. Ethan nodded. Let's talk about the affairs. You testified that your marriage was struggling. When did it start struggling? About 3 years ago. And when did your first affair begin? Gregory's face hardened. Around the same time. So the marriage started struggling when you started cheating on your wife? That's not how it happened. No? How did it happen? Aurora was always working. She was never home. I felt neglected. So you're saying your affairs were her fault? I'm saying the marriage was broken. And rather than try to fix it, you slept with other women and hid money from your wife. I was protecting my interests. At her expense. Objection, Rothman said again. Withdrawn. Ethan pulled out the financial records. Let's talk about these protected interests. You moved $1.9 million into offshore accounts over 3 years, correct? I made legitimate investments. Did you disclose these investments to your wife? No. Why not? They were my separate property. Were they? Because according to Washington state law, any assets acquired during the marriage are community property, which means you were legally required to disclose them. Gregory's lawyer made a note, but Gregory himself just stared at Ethan. You also invested $2 million in a startup run by Vanessa Ortiz, the woman you've been having an affair with. Is that correct? Yes. And you made that investment around the same time the affair began? The timing is coincidental. Is it? Or did you use marital assets to benefit your mistress? That's not what happened. Then what did happen, Mr. Hale? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you spent years lying to your wife, stealing from your marriage, and building an exit strategy. And now you want custody of Emma, not because you love her, but because you want to punish Aurora for finally standing up to you. That's absurd. Is it? Because you can't name her best friend, you don't know her bedtime routine, and you haven't attended a single school event in 6 months. That doesn't sound like a devoted father. That sounds like a man who wants to win. Gregory's face was red now, his composure completely gone. I love my daughter. Then why don't you know her? The courtroom was silent. Ethan stepped back. No further questions. Gregory stepped down from the witness stand looking rattled and angry. As he passed Aurora's table, he shot her a look of pure venom. Aurora didn't flinch. Judge Moreno checked the time. We'll adjourn for today. We'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 for closing arguments. Outside the courthouse, Aurora let out a breath she'd been holding for what felt like hours. You destroyed him, she said. He destroyed himself. I just gave him the rope. Still, that was... She shook her head. I've never seen anything like that. That's the job. Ethan loosened his tie. How are you holding up? Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I should be relieved. We did well today, but all I can think about is tomorrow. Tomorrow's the easy part. I give my closing, Rothman gives his, and then we wait for the judge's decision. How long will that take? Could be a few days, could be a few weeks. Aurora looked like she might be sick. I can't wait weeks. You might have to. Ethan's voice was gentle. But Aurora, whatever happens, you're going to be okay. Emma's going to be okay. You can't know that. No, but I believe it. They stood there on the courthouse steps as people streamed past them. It was getting dark, the January evening settling in cold and gray. Can I buy you dinner? Aurora asked suddenly. Ethan hesitated. I should probably... Please, I don't want to be alone tonight. And I don't think I can face going home to an empty house and just waiting. He should say no. Should maintain boundaries. Should remember that she was still his client and this wasn't over yet. But she looked so tired, so worn down by everything she'd been through. And Ethan realized he didn't want to be alone either. Okay, he said, but somewhere quiet. I don't think either of us can handle noise right now. They found a small Italian place in Fremont, tucked away from the main streets. The kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles, and a waiter who didn't hover. Aurora ordered wine. Ethan stuck with water. You're not drinking? She asked. I need to work on my closing argument tonight. Haven't you already written it? 3 times. But I want to make sure it's perfect. Aurora smiled slightly. You're very dedicated. I don't like to lose. Is that the only reason? Ethan met her eyes across the table. No. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. After this is over, Aurora said quietly, what happens to us? I don't know. You must have thought about it. I have. And? Ethan set down his glass. And I think we should probably have this conversation when you're not my client anymore. Why? Because there are rules. Ethical boundaries. And I've already pushed them further than I should have. Because you care about me. It wasn't a question. Yes, Ethan said. Because I care about you. Aurora's expression softened. I care about you too, in case that wasn't obvious. It was obvious. Then why are we pretending? Because I need to be your lawyer right now, not... He trailed off, not quite able to finish the sentence. Not what? Not whatever else I might want to be. Aurora reached across the table and took his hand. Okay, then for tonight, you're my lawyer and my friend, and the person who's kept me from falling apart. Is that allowed? Ethan looked down at their joined hands. Yeah, that's allowed. They stayed at the restaurant until it closed, talking about everything except the trial. Aurora told him about Emma's dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Ethan told her about Noah's obsession with building elaborate pillow forts. They talked about books and movies and the strange comfort of routine. It felt normal, easy, like something that could become permanent if they let it. When they finally left, Ethan walked Aurora to her car. She unlocked it, but didn't get in right away. Thank you, she said, for today, for all of this. You already thanked me. I know, but I'm going to keep thanking you until this is over. Maybe even after. Aurora, I know, professional boundaries. I'll stop. She smiled. Good night, Ethan. Good night. He watched her drive away, then got into his own car and drove home. Noah was already asleep when he got there. His ex-wife had picked him up from school and brought him back before heading to Portland. Ethan checked on his son, pulled the blanket up to his chin, and then went to his own room to work on the closing argument that would determine Aurora's future. He wrote until 3 in the morning, revising and refining until every word was exactly right. And when he finally fell asleep, he dreamed of courtrooms and custody evaluations, and a woman with dark hair and tired eyes who trusted him to save her. He just hoped he could. The next morning, this courtroom was packed. Word had gotten out about the case, Tech CEO and bitter custody battle, and the gallery was full of reporters and curious onlookers. Aurora sat beside Ethan, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She'd worn a navy dress, simple and professional. She looked exhausted but resolute. Judge Moreno entered and the room fell silent. "We're here for closing arguments in the matter of Hale versus Hale. Mr. Cole, you may proceed." Ethan stood and walked to the center of the courtroom. He didn't have notes. He'd memorized every word. "Your Honor, I want to tell you about Emma Hale. She's 5 years old. She loves purple, hates pepperoni pizza, and sleeps with a stuffed rabbit named Clover. She wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up because she thinks animals are better than people. She's afraid of the dark, but too proud to admit it, so she sleeps with a nightlight shaped like a moon. When she's sad, she gets quiet. When she's frustrated, she cries. She's funny and stubborn and brave and kind." He paused. "I know all of this because her mother knows all of this. Aurora Hale can tell you what Emma had for breakfast this morning, what book they're reading together, what her daughter is worried about at school. She knows Emma's hopes and fears and dreams because she's been there, day after day, year after year, being the parent Emma needs." Ethan gestured toward Gregory. "Mr. Hale couldn't tell you any of those things. He couldn't name Emma's best friend. He couldn't describe her bedtime routine. He couldn't identify her in a class photo. And that's not because he's a bad person, it's because he's been absent. He's made choices, his career, his affairs, his own interests, that took precedence over being a father." He turned back to Judge Moreno. "This case isn't about who makes more money, or who has the bigger house, or who can afford the better attorney. It's about who knows Emma, who loves her enough to put her first, who has earned the right to be called her primary parent. And the evidence overwhelmingly shows that person is Aurora Hale." Ethan stepped closer to the bench. "Mr. Hale's attorney will argue that Miss Hale works too much, that she relies on help, that she's not perfect. And he's right about one thing. She's not perfect. But perfection isn't the standard. The standard is best interests of the child. And Emma's best interest is to remain with the mother who has been her constant, her safe place, her home." He paused again, letting his words settle. The custody evaluator, an expert with 30 years of experience, recommended primary placement with Ms. Hale. Emma herself expressed a clear preference to live with her mother. The evidence of Mr. Hale's financial misconduct and repeated infidelity demonstrates a pattern of dishonesty and self-interest. Everything in this record points to the same conclusion. Ethan's voice dropped, became quieter but no less forceful. "Your Honor, I've been practicing family law for 8 years. I've seen good parents lose and bad parents win. I've seen children used as weapons and families destroyed by ego and spite. This case doesn't have to be one of those. This case can be about doing the right thing, about protecting a child who deserves to feel safe and loved and known." He looked at Aurora briefly, then back at the judge. "Emma Hale is 5 years old. She doesn't understand why her parents are fighting. She doesn't know about hidden assets or custody evaluations or legal arguments. All she knows is that when she's scared, she wants her mother. When she's happy, she wants to share it with her mother. When she goes to bed at night, she wants her mother to sing her the moon song." Ethan's voice strengthened. "Don't take that away from her. Don't punish Aurora Hale for being a working mother. Don't reward Gregory Hale for being an absent father who suddenly decided he wants custody now that it's convenient. Look at the evidence, listen to the evaluator, and do what's right for Emma." He stepped back. "Thank you, Your Honor." The courtroom was silent as he returned to his seat. Aurora's eyes were bright with unshed tears, but she didn't cry. Judge Moreno made notes, then looked at Rothman. "Your closing, counselor." Rothman stood and delivered a polished argument about second chances and committed relationships and the importance of fathers in children's lives. He argued that the custody evaluation was flawed, that Aurora's work schedule was proof of neglect, that Gregory deserved equal consideration as a parent. It was good, professional, but it felt hollow compared to the truth Ethan had laid out. When Rothman finished, Judge Moreno sat back in her chair and looked at both attorneys. "I've heard 3 days of testimony in this case. I've reviewed hundreds of pages of exhibits. I've read the custody evaluator's report multiple times, and I've thought very carefully about what's in Emma's best interest." Aurora's hand found Ethan's under the table. He squeezed it gently. "This is a difficult decision," Judge Moreno continued. "Both parents love their daughter. Both parents want what's best for her. But love alone isn't enough. Children need consistency, stability, and parents who understand their needs." She paused. "The evidence shows that Ms. Hale has been Emma's primary caregiver since birth. She knows the details of Emma's life in a way that Mr. Hale does not. She has maintained her parenting responsibilities even while running a demanding company. The custody evaluator's report is thorough and credible, and I see no reason to disregard her recommendations. Aurora's hand tightened on Ethan's. As for the financial issues, Judge Moreno said, Mr. Hale's failure to disclose nearly $2 million in marital assets is a serious breach of his fiduciary duty. His explanation that he was protecting investments is insufficient. These assets will be divided as community property. She looked directly at Gregory. Mr. Hale, I'm troubled by your lack of knowledge about your daughter's daily life. Being a parent isn't about showing up when it's convenient. It's about being present, engaged, and informed. The evidence suggests you have not been those things. Gregory's face was stone. Judge Moreno turned her attention to Aurora. Ms. Hale, you're not without fault. You've relied heavily on hired help, and your work schedule has sometimes interfered with your ability to be physically present. But the totality of the evidence shows that you have been the primary emotional and practical support in Emma's life. She picked up her gavel. Therefore, I'm ordering the following. Primary residential placement of Emma Hale shall be with her mother, Aurora Hale. Mr. Hale shall have residential time on alternating weekends from Friday evening to Sunday evening and one midweek overnight visit. Major decisions regarding Emma's education, medical care, and extracurricular activities shall be made jointly, with Ms. Hale having final decision-making authority in the event of disagreement. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. For a moment, Aurora didn't move. Then she turned to Ethan, her eyes wide. Did we win? You won. And then she was crying, her whole body shaking with relief and exhaustion and joy. Ethan put his arm around her shoulders and let her cry, not caring who saw or what it looked like. They'd won. Emma was safe, and for the first time in months, Aurora could breathe.